USA, Japan, Mexico, China. All these guitars may come from different countries, but they also have one thing in common. They're all badass guitars. So it makes me wonder, does it even matter where your guitar is made? Let's go. If you are clicking on this video, then you and I are probably the same age. We grew up playing guitar in the 90s and we were conditioned to think that the US made guitars were simply the best. And for the most part, I actually think this way. I think they are the best. But over the course of almost 30 years of playing guitar, I now have a collection of Fender guitars, one from pretty much every country they're produced in, which is the whole idea of this video. This is my 2005 Fender Stratocaster. It's made in the US and it's my first US made Fender. Now the common belief is US made Fenders are top tier, they're the best. They have better craftsmanship, they have better materials, and their attention to detail is top notch. Now, admittedly, I'm late to the Fender Strat game. I got this way later in my guitar journey because I was a Les Paul guy pretty much my entire career. And so my only true experience playing American guitars were my Les Paul Studio and my Les Paul Standard. And when I played this guitar for the first time, I really felt that it was comparable to my Gibsons. It is an amazing guitar to play. It sounds amazing. I love recording with it. I literally have no complaints about this guitar, but having owned a few more Fenders, I'm not sure this is the best one out of the batch that I own. This is my 2006 Fender Telecaster made in Japan. Now the common belief for Fender guitars made in Japan is that they are super well made, almost up to American standards, but they're not quite the same level. They're still second tier, even though these Japanese guitars command a big price point here in North America. This Tele is my first Fender guitar. I bought it brand new in Nagoya, Japan when I was living there. At the time, I was playing in a band and I only had one guitar, which was my Gibson Les Paul Studio. I have a video about that guitar. I will link it down in the descriptions below. I quickly realized as a pro, I needed a second guitar. And so I bought this cheap Fender guitar as a backup to my Gibson Les Paul Studio. This was my first Fender guitar. Now going from a Gibson to this Fender, I was right at home with this guitar. I love single cut guitars. I love how simple this guitar was. And I just felt really at home, almost as much at home with this Fender as I am with my Gibson Studio. The neck on this guitar felt great, even though it was quite different from the Gibson Les Paul. The pickups and the sound of this Tele, of course, was a huge contrast to the Les Paul because it was more bite, it had more twang. But what I love about the difference between these two guitars is they complemented each other, especially when I was recording. Whenever I would play any cleans or I needed tones that would cut through the mix, I would reach for this Tele. And the cool thing about this made in Japan Tele is that it played so well, and I've played US Teles and I can't really tell the difference between the two, and maybe it's just me and it's my bias, but I never wanted another Tele since owning this thing. And so in my opinion and from my experience, Japanese Teles, man, they're up there with quality and playability as the US Fenders. Japan, we go to Mexico. This is my 2012 Blacktop Jazzmaster. Now, growing up, the common belief was that MIM made in Mexico Fenders were the budget Fenders. They were good for the money, but not quite pro level. Now, this Jazzmaster is a newer guitar for me. I picked it up about a year and a half ago. I always wanted one of these blacktop guitars. When they were released in 2012, I really wanted one, but at the time I had just retired from playing in bands and I just couldn't justify buying a new guitar because I wasn't playing in any band, and really at that point, I wasn't really doing anything with music. Now, when I saw this guitar on Marketplace, I knew I had to try it out. It was listed for $800 and I got it for $750. Now, the funny thing about this transaction was I didn't get to meet the seller. I didn't get to try out this guitar. He promised me that there was no issues with it, and he actually sent this guitar in an Uber. And when I got it, the first thing that I loved about this guitar was how cool it looked. I love the sunburst finish. I love the black pickguard. And the coolest thing about this guitar is the P90. I've never had a guitar with a P90. In fact, I love the P90 sound so much it actually appears on the verse lead line in my single Just Like Drinking Whiskey with my band Donnie M and the Whiskey Cult. I have a link down in the descriptions below. Go check out that song. My experience with MIM guitars is, man, you can't go wrong with these guitars at the price point. They sound great and they look great. And my favorite thing that Fender does with MIM guitars is they say Fender on the headstock. Growing up, there was something about having Epiphone and Squier on the headstock that I just didn't see as pro, where I was completely wrong. I know it's a superficial thing, and so in my opinion and my experience with MIM guitars, these guitars are awesome. All right, the last Fender in my collection is made in China. Of course, the common belief is made in China guitars are not great quality and they are beginner guitars. Well, let me tell you, with this guitar, nothing is further from that. This guitar is one of my prized possessions in my entire collection. It is a 2016 Fender Starcaster, which of course is a reissue of these Starcaster guitars from the 70s. This guitar to me is special. I bought it April of 2020. If you could recall, that was a crazy time in the world. It was during the lockdown, and much like a lot of people, I was online looking for stuff. And I found this guitar on Marketplace from a guy who lived not too far from where I lived at the time. And he was selling this guitar and his entire pedal board because he lost his job and he needed to pay rent. I just took it upon myself to not only get a good guitar, but try to help this guy out. And unlike all my transactions, whenever I buy a piece of gear used, I didn't haggle. I paid him his ask price. And I also promised him that at any point, if he wanted to buy this guitar back from me, I would sell it back to him. That offer still stands, my dude, although I would be very sad if you took this guitar back. What can I say about this guitar? Actually, I have a video about this guitar. I'll link it right here. This guitar, since I bought it, out of all my guitar collection, gets the most use. It appeared the most on my Instagram page when I was doing covers back in 2023. It appears in my Villain Heart video with AJ Perdomo. And honestly, whenever I sit down to demo or record anything, this is my go-to. I used to consider myself a Les Paul guy only, but since having this guitar, I now consider myself a Starcaster guy. So does it even matter where your guitar is made? To a certain extent, yes, US made guitars are inherently more expensive. But are they the best because they're the most expensive? I'm not sure they are. In my opinion, that mindset is wrong and outdated. All 4 guitars I showed you today are different. They come from different countries, but they're all great. What matters most is inspiration, not origin. If a guitar makes you want to play, then it's the right guitar. Now, if you're wondering how much money I've spent on all the gear that you see here, I made a video about that. I will link it right here. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.